far as he was concerned, when Bob and I came in the door, we're the undertakers come to measure the body. I mean, he is terrified. And I go over and I say, Mister, can I talk? He said, what do you mean? Where am I going? Where am I going? Can't you see? So we started to talk. And I told my story, and Bob, for the first time, told his story. It took about an hour. And little by little, when this guy became aware of the fact that he wasn't dying, you could see him begin to settle down. And the sweat stopped pouring off him, and the eyes went back into his head, and he stopped shaking a little bit, and almost a bit of a smile, I guess you could say, but he knew he was getting a reprieve. And finally, I said to him when we concluded, because he was perfect for us, I said, well, are you ready? Are you for us? And he said, no, sorry, not me. It's too late for me. I mean, I'm a goner. He said, I dare not leave this place. I have so much rage inside of me. He said, I'll kill somebody on my next drunk. I've asked to be committed. I dare not leave here. I'll kill somebody. He said, I never gave up on God. He said, God gave up on me a long time ago. But I wish you all the luck in the world. Thanks, but I'm not for you. It's too late. We turned to go, and I don't know if it was Bob or I, but one of us went back and said, hey, mister, maybe we missed something. Could we come back and talk to you again? Is there a chance of that? And he said, oh, please do. If doing this helps you fellas, oh, please come back. You know how lonely this drying out is. They hate us in these joints. They hate the sight of us, the sound of us, the smell of us. They don't come near us for 1 minute of the day to the next. Oh, please come back. If just for the company, please come back. We had half a sale. We'll take it. A couple days later, we get back. Now, he's out of the private room. He's back in the ward. We walk in the door, and his back was to us. And his Johnny was open. You could see his moon. And he's talking to his wife, and she's sitting on a chair. And she looked it up as we came in the door, and I guess he turned to see what she was looking at, and he spots us. And he lets out a roar. There they are! Well, honestly, there was a fellow right alongside him. I think they had just certified dead, got up and went home. This guy screaming from the top, it wasn't a dream, it wasn't a dream. Jumping up and down, his fanny's flopping in the breeze. And he says, his wife's crying, and she thinks he's going nuts, and we're trying to calm him down. It wasn't a dream, it wasn't a dream. I'm not crazy. Honey, these are the men I spoke about. It wasn't a dream. This fellow pointed at me. He said, he's a stockbroker from Wall Street. He's an alcoholic. Like, tell her. This other guy, he's a Heine doctor right here in this hospital. Tell her what you told me. And little by little, we began to tell her what we had told him the night, a couple of nights before. And over again, he kept saying, it wasn't a dream. It wasn't a dream. It wasn't a dream. And at last we were finished. He said to her, honey, please, get my clothes. I want to go home. His name was Bill D. A number 3. He said, if they can do it, I think I can do it. We had our first group that still meets today. And that was a miracle. Because here was a man who was a stranger to the Oxford group, knew nothing about it, and yet he understood the language of the heart that we have, one alcoholic, one addict for another. Understood it enough never to drink again. And that was the beginning. 2 years later, we had 40 men sober, 6 months or more, and that was a bigger miracle. Never done before. One night back in Akron, I was there on business. Bob and I listed their names, and the fact that they had 6 months of sobriety, that was the criteria. We finished, Bob said to me, you know, Bill, at the rate we're going, we'll have 1,000 by the year 2000, and that stinks. We've got to kick it out of retail into wholesale. Take this list back to New York, show it to your rich friends. They'll invest in this. We'll open up rehabs all over the United States. We'll put one drunk in each one, and we'll be really, really riding high from that day forward. Get it done. Get organized. We need money. Took the list, went back to New York, showed it to all my rich friends. They told me to go to hell. Nobody, I mean nobody had money for a bunch of drunks. The Depression was just ending, but times were still tough. They're not going to invest in drunks. Even got to talk to the Rockefeller people. John D. himself. He read the reports after investigating us and said to his associate, nothing has ever touched me as much as what these fellows are doing, but don't ask me to give them any money, it'll kill it. This is perfect the way it is. Leave it alone. We'd come that close to the brass ring. We didn't get it. We were still losing. But at one of the meetings, fortunately, one of the Rockefeller meetings, one of their board members said, you know, if you want to make money, why don't you write a book? Books sell, and you got the cure for the worst curse of mankind. Write a book, you'll be millionaires. On that piece of advice, we raised $5,000 to open up a publishing company. We called it Works Publishing after Annie. Faith without works is dead. I wrote my piece, Bob wrote his. Silky, Dr. Silkworth wrote a piece. I wrote a couple of other things. 40-some-odd drunks wrote their stories. Finally, we had a book. The only thing missing was a little part in the middle, how it works. Whenever they asked me how it works, I said, it works fine. I mean, we didn't have a clue. We had those 5 ideas that Ebby had given me, the Oxford group. We invented the first step, that we were powerless over liquor and that our lives were unmanageable. We had kind of a 6th thing, but we didn't have how it works. And you can't have a how-to book without how it works. We were stuck. One night, back in Brooklyn, at our house, my brother-in-law's house, we were sitting around drinking Lois's coffee. I thought that she was still at work at the department store, but she was in the kitchen. She was overhearing this conversation. We were talking about how it works, and we were deciding that night if we were going to have a bestseller, we better keep God out of it. God wasn't selling in 1938-39. The World's Fair had just opened up. It was the world of tomorrow, the world of the future, the world of science. We better make this a scientific book. We had broken away from the Oxford group in New York. We were meeting in our homes now. They hadn't done it yet in Akron. It allowed us more freedom. There were questions of anonymity, and also opened the door and made it easier for Catholics and Jews to come into our fellowship. But basically, we'll always be in their debt. A great deal of what we have today comes from that group. But we were meeting in our homes, and this crew in New York, especially one fellow in particular, we were pretty godless. For most of the men, their higher power was the trolley that brought them to meetings. So we decided that night, let's keep God out of the book. And I agreed. We wanted a bestseller. And Lois, overhearing this conversation, she got angry because all of a sudden we heard the crash of a coffee pot hitting the stovetop, and she comes tearing out of the kitchen. She throws everybody out of the house except me because I lived there. And when they all gone, for those of you that know Lois, she pointed a finger at me almost in my nose and she said, "Mister, you're going to get drunk." I said, "Who said?" She said, "I said." I said, "What makes you say that? You forgot who got you sober."
You forgot who got you sober.
She spun on her heels and she went upstairs to bed. And I dare not follow. I didn't need any more of that. There was a little room underneath the staircase that we used for our quiet time. It had a little cot in it. And I went in there and I laid down because I was very depressed. I hated to hurt her feelings, especially now that I was sober. I did enough damage when I was drunk. I'm lying there in that bed, and I'm thinking about what she said, and finally I sit up, and I went through my life again, and I realized something that, well, I guess you'd call it the core truth of my life. I realized finally, after thinking about all the times in my life when there was something outside of myself that had come to my aid, I came to the truth of that, and I surrendered to it. And the solution from that surrender was as simple as A, B, C. A, I realized that I always will be an alcoholic. B, no power on earth can relieve me of that. C, except God. Who would if I would ask? And I had asked him that night in that hospital room, show me, and he had shown me. It was as simple as that. And then I thought of the people that were coming after me and after us, and I said, how are they going to find the core truth of their life? And over the bed was a clipboard and some paper and pencil, and I took it down and I began to write. And I took those 6 ideas we had, and I began to cut them up into pieces. When I finished, I had 12 steps. And I stopped at number 12 for one reason alone. There were 12 apostles. I said, if that's good enough for him, it's got to be good enough for us. And lo and behold, as it turned out, I identified God in the 2nd step and was calling him by name in the 3rd step. And I said, this is good. This is going to the publisher. And I came up out of the room, and 2 of the fellows had come back and they were drinking Lois's coffee and sitting in the parlor, and I read to them for the first time the 12 steps. I didn't want their vote, their approval. I just said, this is what's going to the book, to the publisher. And they didn't argue, and finally our